Hello, welcome to Dip into the Ink, the show where I, Noah Garcia, and sometimes a guest dive into a comic book page by page. Today we're doing this solo style because while I normally bully my friends into doing these episodes with me, I decided to take on this particular endeavor by myself. Specifically because today we are talking about Ultimate X-Men number 7. For those who don't know, Ultimate Marvel is sort of a label they give to Elseworld stories. There was an Ultimate Universe that ended almost a decade now ago, but they started a brand new one called Ultimate X Men, Ultimate Spider Man, Ultimate Black Panther, and now Ultimate Avengers. Whole brand new universe, familiar characters, different situations. Now, this one particularly, I know is very divisive among fans simply because it's so different from what not only what people expected it to be, not only in roster or story wise, but it's placed within the scope of what the Marvel Ultimate Universe is trying to be. So I just thought this would be a good point because for me, this issue was an either make it or break it issue. So let's dive into this comic book page by page and just discuss my feelings. And you guys can let me know what you think down in the comments down below. But let's get right into it. A quick note: if my image or any images seem weird, I'm still not great with this recording program, so sorry about that. First, we're gonna look at the cover, done by Peach Momoko, who's the writer artist. She is the architect of this book, Ultimate X Men. This is a cool, mysterious figure. If we don't know who it is, it can be kind of intriguing because there's a bunch of spiritual, perhaps Oni masks behind her. She has one kind of taped to the side of her head. She has a big ponytail. For us comic people that know a bit more, we know this is Kanan, who is known as Psylocke. It's a whole history. It's a whole thing. We don't need to get into it for the specifics of this video, but it's a telepathic mutant. There's been a lot of jokes that Peter Momoko is doing like Infinity Gauntlet of every Japanese and Asian mutant and just collecting them all into this book. And that's very funny. And honestly, if she is, good for her. But love the colors. Coloring is very soft, very light as I like it. It's that manga style, which that's just sort of a broad term to kind of specify it. I know there's more specific terms to describe the art style, but most people just describe it as like a manga type style. This page, okay, now we are to the info page. If I mispronounce things, it's just me being ignorant. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything. I just don't know how to pronounce things. I'm terrible with languages. But we look to the recap. A diabolical genius known as the Maker used time travel to create his ideal Earth by systematically preventing anyone from ever becoming a superhero, except for those on his secret Maker's Council, whom he stationed to rule over different regions of the world. Overseeing the eastern territory of Hinokun, Land of the Sun, is Sunfire and his right hand Viper. In Hinokun, a teenage girl named Hisako Ichiki, Armor, had new powers awakened to protect her when a sinister shadow attacked. As Hisako and her friends, May Igarashi, Maystorm, and Nico Monroe pursued the source behind the shadow, they learned of the strange cult called the Children of the Atom that worships Homo Superiors. Surprisingly, it turns out that Nico's friends, Natsu and Mori, are members of the cult, and they recognize the shadows as their fellow cult member, Shinobu Kageyama. And that's sort of the recap. In the last issue, there was some confrontation. This person who's projecting this mental image that's been the enemy of the series so far went into to go check out his mentors to be like something's going on. So he's currently getting checked out. But we cut off of the recap over to the next page. And if you guys see me moving hands and everything, it's because I bought the issue. I have it downloaded. I have everything on my computer. So if I'm moving a lot, sorry. But we're gone to the credits page. Writer artist Peach Momoko, script adaptation Zach Davidson, letter of Vix Travis Lanham, cover artist Peach Momoko. Just basically attributing everything. We'd like to call that out, even though during the review I may not intentionally call out certain aspects. I might forget, but I want to make sure I at least say it. Ultimate X-Men are cast. Hisako Ishiki, Armor, May Igarashi, Maystorm, Nico Moreau, Fledgling Psychic. Those are our main three. There's a couple other characters, but we'll get into them when we need to. But we find ourselves at this compound, which does not look good. It looks very culty. It looks like it's also in the middle of the countryside. From what I understand, Japan has lots of countryside in it. So they could be in the middle of nowhere basically. But Temple of the Revealed X, Children of the Atom, and someone yells out, Homo Superior! In the name of the Testament of X, I, your maester, have devoted my life to you as your humble servant, ensuring your joy and equality, my children of the atom. Children, you have outgrown your parent. The time has come to reveal your genetic superiority and revel in your powers to truly become free. And it's interesting because we see some of our side characters in the back. This guy is just preaching about, oh, you children are the next stage of evolution. You have to save the world. You control and master your gifts. Embrace your divinity. So really, very much the cult tactic of bringing in young minds and shaping them into believing this sort of almost like religious dogma of you are the righteous and you're given powers for a reason, and the pressure's on you to save the world. So this guy's clearly doing that. Whether or not all of these characters believe that is up to debate. But the page ends with this guy who looks a little Dracula-ish. I don't know how to describe it. He's kind of vampire core. He says, "Let us begin, my children of the atom, our most sacred ceremony. Receive your endowment," which is very interesting. We cut to the next page where we see Surge, one of the side characters. She's getting her blood tested by this nurse, Miss Ishida, and they're asking, "Have you been using your gifts?" Sometimes, and they're like, also, you know, you're not supposed to have your phone. Fucking give that shit up. Because clearly they don't want any evidence of anything they're doing let out here. And this book is sort of it blends genres a little bit. It's a little shonen, it's a little horror. But this nurse's face, like this sort of like smile and then a lidded eye kind of opened, almost like a crescent moon, like it's very creepy. It's very good. It's very well implemented. There's a lot of really great facial expressions that go in with Peach Momoko's art. Well, a lot of it comes across as, kind of soft. There are very lines are very enunciated to project different emotions, and this is just really like scary movie type level stuff that I really enjoy. Just little touches like this. But this nurse with her creepy face, she's like, "Give me your phone." They're prohibited. But we cut to the next page. We see this girl Surge. She's kind of friends with our antagonist, the Shadow guy, Shadow King. I don't want to get into labels, but that's such a dumb thing to say. This is all reactions. I read it once, then I go through. But Mr. Kageyama can't be disturbed, and she says, "Go give your best to your mother. Leave her alone." And we see Kageyama, the Shadow King, and he's currently put. It looks like he's in sort of like a medically induced coma. You can see he's stretched out. He's attached to a bunch of wires, and there's these little black accents coming off, like his power is still radiating out. But we cut to the next page where this maester who kind of talks about, like, he's looking at the results of some tests from the Shadow King, and he's talking about like the blood is the most sacred relic, and he says especially the miraculous Mr. Kageyama here. His gift, his X gene, is beyond imagination. Not only his telepathy, but his ability to activate latent powers in others to awaken them to their potential. A superior among superiors. And it's interesting because in the previous issue, it was sort of discussed the idea that you could possibly do like a blood transfusion or do some sort of ritual to give others powers. But he is a naturally, from what we understand, maybe like a naturally born mutant who doesn't need any type of blood augmentation. And that's expanded upon here in this issue where it's saying like he's actually helping awaken powers. Because he goes on to say about they find more children blessed with abilities, more with X gene, and he's excited because like when these people are put into moments of crisis, they can manifest. And this sort of age, she's like, "You mean this group of kids, Hisako Ishiki, Mei Igarashi, Nico Monroe?" And this bad guy, he's like, "Oh, we gotta bring him into the flock. We gotta pull him out, these true Homo superiors," which kind of begs the question because Hisako and Mei are both obviously mutants. Nico Monroe, in the comics, at least in the main universe, she isn't really a mutant. She's a magic user. She has sort of a cursed staff. She learns a bit of magic. She has her own little journey, but she's not a mutant per se. So maybe they changed it here the idea of blood connections is a big part of this series, and it was mentioned in previous issues that Nico's, I believe her grandmother was like a psychic, was a magic person. She was doing investigations in this cult this bad guy works for. So perhaps she's not a mutant, perhaps she's magical in some way, but we don't know yet. But there's a knock at the door, and we cut to the next page where the right hand man of the leader of this eastern region, Viper, shows up. We just find out. And she goes, "There's been another death. How many does that make this year? These experiments are far too important for sloppy work. You need to get this under control." And clearly, this guy who was almost fanatically excited about this, you see there's an instant change. He starts sweating. He's like, "I understand, Viper. I'll take care of it." And, Viper kind of reminds him, like, Emperor Sunfire, who's clearly, we know now, is in on this bullshit, says he would not be pleased if this went public, and he will burn the shit out of you. Like, I feel like that's intended by her speech, because the bad guy, the maester, he responds, "I'll burn every failure myself." Like, that's a little heavy handed to Sunfire's own power of like nuclear heating energy, fire stuff. But basically, it's interesting because he's like, "Well, if you're so worried about leaks, let's not say in front of the patients." And Viper's like, "I made sure he's sedated." But right as she says that, right on time, Kageyama's eyes open, and and it turns out, he's not all the way asleep. And you see he's like almost like a comatose eye, and he goes, "Hisako, my Hisako." He starts using his like shadowy telepathic powers to just attack, just fully shoot out energy. And Viper has to pull out sort of this and sort of like, it looks like almost like a relaxer or something morphing, and she like shoots it into him and it knocks him out. And Viper kind of remarks like, "Is this boy subconsciously reaching out to Hisako Ishiki?" Like, very odd. And before we go to the next page, there's clearly some sort of connection. Hisako does not remember him whatsoever, but clearly she had a big effect on him. And that hasn't been really explored yet. It's been teased a lot. And this teasing is actually one of the issues I have with Ultimate X-Men as a book and how it's constructed and how it's laid out, because I'm a big fan of the series and what's been happening so far, but I have my own little issues. And if you guys want to hear about them, let me know. I'll make a whole video about it. I might just do that even if nobody tells me, which is kind of the whole purpose of my channel. I just do whatever I want because I enjoy making it. But yeah, I have some issues with Ultimate X-Men, but we'll get into that later. But we jump back to the school where Maestrom's just like, "Are you going tonight to Juyoga Matsuri?" And Hisako's like, "The Full Moon Harvest Festival," which he says for people like me who don't know anything about Japanese culture, so thank you. She's like, "The Full Moon Harvest Festival? I don't know." And Maystorm, she's a big bouncy energy, fun, and like she's like, "Come on, let's go, it'll be fun." And Hisako's like, maybe. And Armor gets bumped into by this girl on the next page. Same girl from our cover. And she looks very like, not apologetic, not upset or anything, just like, "Oh, I noticed that," and kind of walks by. And Maestrom's kind of response is like, "Hello, excuse you." And Hisako kind of has a moment like, that bump into me didn't hurt. In fact, I feel like this power is getting stronger, which is good. We've seen her connection to her abilities just grow stronger. So it's nice to have a moment of self-reflection. And honestly, a little bit more self-reflection would have been nice, but we have many things to do during this issue. So you cut away from this conversation over to this girl. You see she's in, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, full like kendo gear, and she just knocks this guy out. And he's like, "Enough, Kanan, Mayara, you win." And this girl kind of takes off her kendo helmet. And she kind of like looks down, she's a little sweaty. And we cut over, and you see her kind of putting away all her stuff. She's riding the tram. She takes a ride over to the police station, where she's like, "Yo," and the police notices her, and she's like, "I just beat the hell out of some sophomores." And this guy's like, "Come on, let me give you some advice. When you're good at something, like you are at kendo, you can't just beat people. Teach them, share them what you know. You got to learn to get people on your side. Otherwise, there'll come a time when you need help and no one will be there." And she kind of responds, and she's like, "Are you gonna lecture me? You're my brother, Tatsuya, not my parent." And maybe this is sort of the mindset he's trying to implement in her, because I do feel like this little group of ex girls, they need some sort of direction. They need leadership because right now, for the past several issues, they've been very reactive. They've been proactive maybe once or twice, but they've been a lot, very much reactive, and maybe some leader kind of spearheading their efforts to figure out what the code is, to training their powers. Somebody like that can give them strong direction, I think would be really helpful for them as a group, and perhaps the story as well. So this brother kind of trying to implement this thought process into her, and she kind of brushes off. But who knows? Maybe she'll embrace it later. Maybe something horrible will happen to him, and in honor of his memory, she'll try to embrace that thought process more. But after that, we cut over, and this old lady just comes in. This old sweaty old lady, and she's like, she's going on walks to the Arakar River. She's been doing it for years, and she saw a very interesting beat up suitcase on the riverbank. Like somebody abandoned some suitcase. And the cop's like, I'll go investigate it. And Kanan's like, oh, fuck it, let's go. And he's like, don't follow me. And she just runs after him. She's very athletic. And they run out a bit to the countryside. And they find this piece of luggage. And they open it up. And it just stinks. And we get this really gross page where it just looks like it's cut up, diseased, mutated body parts, possibly. What's really intriguing is that we see a symbol. It's almost like it's like a question mark with like a cross through it. It's very interesting. But this same symbol was on the wall earlier when the cult was preaching. So it's just like 127. Is that the 127th experiment? Like what's going on here? But we see that Kanan's very brave because not only did she open the suitcase, she's kind of holding her shit together and she's like, oh, this fucking shit smells. Well, her brother is like trying not to throw up. But we cut over to the next page where it says the afternoon the following day, this brother cop is woken up and it's Viper looking very chic in like a black trench coat and like these almond eye sunglasses. And she's just like, your superiors informed us you found something of ours. We've retrieved it. You'll sign here. Fail to comply and our organization will be most displeased. And it's some non-disclosure agreement. And we continue and Kanon comes home. And she's like, any updates on the suitcase? And the brother's like, what suitcase? And she's like, you asleep or something? The suitcase with the dead body in it. And she sees on the table there's a non-disclosure agreement. And the brother kind of goes, that is something telling you to forget the whole night and not do anything stupid. So say it with me. What suitcase? Which is interesting. I feel like that's an interesting clash of ideals because one scene he's lecturing his sister, kind of being like, oh, be a leader, like teach people. And then the next one is like, keep your mouth shut. Don't talk about it. Which is maybe, again, I would have liked a little bit more because we have such limited pages. I would have liked just a little bit more like expanding on that. Expanding on that in the sense that maybe Kanon could retort like, "Oh hey, like oh yesterday you're lecturing me about this, and now you're telling me to keep my mouth shut," and him kind of be like, "You got to choose your battles." Like I wish that scene had been expanded a little bit more, but we are constrained to the page sizes and numbers of a comic book, which is another issue I have this comic. But Maestrom shows up. She's in a very cute Yukura. And of course, Hisako's just in like overall. She's not really a festive girl. And she kind of, Maestrom's kind of just like, oh, I should have asked my granny to dress you. And Hisako's like, yeah, the last time I wore a yukata with Tsubasa, her friend who committed suicide. And Maestrom's like, oh shit, I don't remind this girl about her fucking dead friend. Oh, look, hey, it's Nico, Natsu, and Mori. Let's go say hi. So she just kind of swerves on that. And they all meet up, and they're like, hey, y'all look great. And Hisako kind of remarks like, Nico, what are you looking at? And they all look up. And it's like this shadowy psychic eye forming in the middle. And clearly that Tsubasa, the Shadow King, kind of reaching out. Whether it's due to obsession or whether it's for help, we're not entirely sure. But it's this big giant eye forming over this fair. And then it says to be continued. Oh, so that was the end of the issue. It feels like issue 8 should hopefully, one, have a lot of action, two, possibly give us some answers, and three, bring all our members of this group together, and four, will hopefully kind of give us a little bit of resolution. Where does Hisako know the Shadow King from? Is what's Kanan's power is going to be like? How are they all going to interact? And it feels like sort of issue 8 might be the culmination of the ones that come before it. And I said earlier that this was the make or break it issue, and that's what I thought going into it. But clearly, issue 8 is going to be the make or break issue, which is interesting because the fact that I have to think about whether or not this is I can continue with this, and I've bought 7 of these, each of them for $4.99, so it's like $1 above the regular comic price because most Marvel comics are like $3.99, but because Marvel knows everyone's buying Ultimate Comics because they're so hot right now, they can charge like an extra buck for it, which for Ultimate Spider-Man I get it because it's so good. It's a very fun slow burn. I'm enjoying it. But Ultimate X Men next issue is definitely going to be the make or break it, and whether or not I continue this series going forward. Because there's a lot of things I like about it, but just a lot of the ways it's formatted. There's a bit of issues I have with that. But aside from all of that, I really enjoyed the issue. If you already enjoy the concept of Ultimate X Men and you're wondering if you can continue with it, it's just a lot of the same thing. So there's no divergence in the level of quality in what's being delivered from previous issues with the newer ones. So if you like it, it's gonna just keep doing what you like. But if you didn't like it, there's gonna be no change. If you didn't like it and you're hoping it's gonna get quote better or change in any way, no, it's being very consistent with what it's trying to do in the story beats and the pacing. And for some people that's great, and for others it's not. And so far I'm enjoying it, but again, next issue we're gonna have to find out. But yeah, are you guys reading Ultimate X-Men? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you wish it was about like an actual team instead of a bunch of teenage girls in the Eastern Territory? Or are you enjoying this weird break from the overall Ultimate universe plot and you're just enjoying these girls having fun and discovering themselves? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to follow all my socials, there'll be a link down, as well as the poetry/photography book I did with my friend Rudy. That'll also be in the link down below. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening and being here with me. If you have any other comics you want me to look at, please let me know. And I love you. Goodbye.